if you've got yourself ready, hopefully you've got yourself a cup of coffee. Unfortunately today my one's a little bit different because I'm not at home, legally not at home, mind you. But my dear wife last week made me some muffins, apple and cinnamon muffins. This week I've got chocolate brownies, pretty huge. So make sure you've got your morning tea with you so we can sit back, relax, and have a conversation with our special guest. But before we do that, I'd like to thank our sponsors and business partners who work with the FBAA and are constantly there supporting us, and we're supporting them with their business. And we wish them all the best as well during this COVID-19 period. Anyhow, let's move on and introduce our special guest. He's a great friend of mine. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with Alex Brgudac, the head of partnerships at Prospa. You know, he's famous for actually across the whole of Europe for being known as an employee of the FBAA, and in early March having to shut his office down because of the impact of an outbreak of coronavirus there in his office. But right across Europe, Alex, welcome. How are you, mate?
Hey, Whitey, good, mate. How you going?
Good, brother, good, good. Glad to see you're all gussied up with the Prospa shirt on. Good to see.
Mate, it's been a while since I've worn this thing. I broke it out yesterday, and today I feel it's starting to feel a bit like normal. But I didn't quite get dressed up and $1 million like you do, mate.
Well, I got other things to do next today, so I've sort of had to have myself prepared.
Mate.
But
I know.
But I hope you got your cup of coffee there. Normally I would have mine in a nice mug, but in the hotel room I'm at, I get a cup of tea like that, and I thought that doesn't look so good, so I'll bugger that off. I got my coffee ready to go.
Oh, mate, I'm all but prospering here because I got my shirt, I got my mug. I thought, okay, well that ticks the marketing department. I've done them, and now just over to us.
Get the CEO off your back.
Yeah, mate, I crapped myself a bit because I got on and I had no audio, and of course it's always the way, right? It's like I can see it, it's not working, what's going on, and poor Mariah must be having a heart attack because she's telling me to dial in on the telephone. And I thought, no, screw it. Go with the old fashioned. If it's broken, just turn it off and turn it back on. And that's what I did. And it was just in time as I heard you talking about our at the International Women's Day. I caught the tail end of that. That was near 2 months ago. Near 2 months ago now. Been a long time since then.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, what happened was that. At the 12th hour, almost literally, our venue for International Women's Day got shut down. And that was Alex's office. We were going to be up on top of Prospa there. And they had a suspected outbreak of coronavirus. It got shut down. And Alex, he's such a wonderful person, brother. You got a new venue done in rocket time. Everything was sorted out. It went like magic. No one would have known the difference, except for everyone in Europe, because a picture of you went right across the European newspapers talking about how this building had to shut down, one of the first for coronavirus. And there is Alex putting this picture up on a wall with FBAA across the top. Go on.
I think there's a part where I say you're welcome.
Yeah.
That was insane. And I suppose just to be clear, it wasn't us, Prosper. We share the building with Viacom, like MTV and Nickelodeon. And it was their office where there was a suspect. Well, there was someone who was exposed to someone else who may have had it. So they shut down, and we were forced to shut down as well. But we reopened on the Monday, and who would have thought at that stage it was only going to be imminent, before we all started working from home as we are now. This is my 6th week. We're moving into my 6th week of working from home. I think a lot of people are in the same boat, but it's crazy.
Yeah, it's gone past that quick. So anyhow, we better get into today's session. what we might do is I just want to preface a couple of things to people. We do get a lot of questions come in. And so if your question doesn't get answered, it'll either be because it's replicated with another one. We might have answered it last week, or we've got that much, we're going to have to float into next week, because we've got, again, way in excess of 330 plus people with us today. There's a lot of questions that come with that. So apologies if it doesn't happen on time. It will happen. And of course, if we've already answered in previous weeks, go back and look at the FBAA YouTube channel, because every episode of this is being put up the following week, and you'll be able to watch it there. So bear with us if that happens. But I think before we dive into some questions, mate, because I think a conversation about what's happening at Prospa at the moment might even answer some of these questions that we've got here, but we'll touch base with those as well. But what's the latest update with Prospa? I believe absolute magnificent. Congratulations with you guys getting a part of the government stimulus stuff. Tell us about that.
Yeah, mate, thank you very much. Firstly, we're obviously very excited to have received the communication from the government and Treasury that we were successful in being part of the government guarantee scheme. I think it's unfortunate given the current environment. I think it's important to recognise what a significant milestone that actually is, not just for Prospa, but for our industry, for financial services. I'm really excited in the fact that the government, and the reason why I think it's such a big milestone is that the government has recognised non-bank lenders more formally through things like this scheme, and suggesting that non-banks such as Prospa are critically important to the survival of small businesses and the economy and the impact that it can have on the economy. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that, because it is a huge milestone, something we're certainly excited about. And now, of course, we're really busy behind the scenes making sure that we continue to support small business owners, and what that means. I mean, because we, like every lender, we still need to practice responsible lending. And every small business owner right now, I mean, this is unprecedented, are facing not only cash flow challenges and pressures, but they're all different. Some have moved to diversified models. Some have moved to e-commerce models. I mean, restaurants are now, some are moving into manufacturing or takeaway only business. Some have decided it's actually they're best to simply stop trading and conserve any cash they've got. So we're working through all of that, and we're going to be in a position where we're doing putting out more information in relation to new products under that scheme over the coming days, and brokers are going to be a huge part of that moving forward. So yeah, thanks, mate. It's huge.
Well, that's excellent to hear. So yeah, glad to see that Prospa is supporting brokers as well and being able to facilitate this. It's not all lenders are, and that's creating a bit of angst somewhere. So thumbs up to Prospa, your legends. And mate, so what? You're a few days away from talking about product that's going to sit underneath this. Is that about right? So let's say sometime next week.
Yeah, mate. Well, we're going to make. So we've always been really proud of the fact that our technology, our business practice, our people, we've always been able to deliver very fast turnarounds. So where we say we're going to do something, we do it. You know, quick yes is as good as a quick no. We're really conscious of the fact that there's a lot of anxiety going around right now for everybody. And I say everybody, in some way, shape or form, people are feeling some level of anxiety, whether it, if you're working in essential services, that anxiety is driven by being overworked and, you know, under an immense amount of pressure, to people who are just in survival mode. And the worst possible outcome right now would be to continue feeding the industry with no answers. So we want to make sure that when we're very clear with what we've got, which we're in the process of about to launch to broker market, through even industry associations like yourselves. So this is the first time I've sort of spoken about, in fact, what we're planning to do.
Breaking news, we've got a scoop.
Breaking news. Well, so there'll be more information coming out, but yeah, when we put it out, we want to make sure we're in a position to simply tell them what the outcome is. If it's a yes, well, it's standard Prospa practice. We fund it same day. There's no changes. So if you put an application in, we're going to put out a set criteria around, you know, how long they have to be trading and all that sort of normal jazz. But if they meet the criteria, well, then it's simply funded. If they don't, well, we'll tell you of the outcome straight away as well. Therefore, reducing that anxiety of people just waiting, just wanting to know what is the answer.
Yeah, there's nothing worse. And like you and I have been in the game for a little bit, and there is nothing worse than a protracted conversation that winds up no, that could have been done right up front. Yeah, nobody likes a no, but at the same time, you're better off to know it and deal with it than to think you're on the hook for something that never happens. That is worse, and your clients, just it doesn't work even a little bit for them. So anyhow, I got a question in this morning directed to you guys. This is from Linda, and she's asked, will Prospa lend with hospitality and retail industry now? I guess they're interesting questions, and they're things that are on people's mind that may be a short-term situation, but not necessarily a long-term situation, or in some cases, people just may go, no, I'm not doing that again, or whatever. What's Prospa's view at the moment in around that sort of industry, so hospitality and retail?
Yeah, so it's interesting. As I was alluding to, some businesses have actually always had an e-commerce presence, and it may have been a very small portion of their business. But one of my colleagues was showing me a picture of a coffee shop that just down the road from him, and they're only practicing takeaway, so they're restaurant slash coffee shop. They're only practicing takeaway because that's all they're allowed to do, of course. But there was a lineup down the footpath of people waiting to get their food and their coffee, all practicing social distancing. So, of course, we've all seen it. The line looks tremendously long, like it's going down the block, but there's a gap between people. But this line is going on for all day long. So their trading is quite phenomenal. So there are businesses out there who have managed to, depending on where they are, their demographic, geographic. You're about to show me a picture.
Well, you were talking about lineups. I saw a lineup yesterday. Of airplanes. Brisbane's got a new car park.
Wow, that's Brisbane, is it? Wow, look at
airplanes lined up there. Sorry, you were talking about lineups. I thought it was funny. Yeah.
Well, I've seen those images from overseas airports. I haven't seen any from our own soil here. So yeah, that's interesting. But so in short, the answer is yes. We're still lending to hospitality and restaurants and cafes, but no business is in the same position. So I would suggest, like we were talking to a restaurant who are taking the opportunity to shut doors and refurbish and do, like, take the opportunity because they otherwise can't stop trading. When they're trading normally, they can't close their restaurant for a week or two to do the things they wanted to do in the past. So the answer in short is yes, but we want to look at where they're at, of course, and what they can afford, because in all of this, and one message I certainly want to put out there is there are a lot of options for businesses to take and understand, be it, you know, things available, initiatives available through the government, or things, actions they could be taking and should be taking throughout their business to reduce, you know, overhead services, or any other sort of costs, before they should be considering a loan. So even though you can defer your repayments, and I think everyone's been banging on about this, and rightly so, even though you can defer your repayments for 6 months, the problem does not go away. You've still got a debt that you've got to solve for in 6 months' time. So we want to make sure we continue to practice responsible lending, whilst having, you know, supporting businesses out there. So things like the government guarantee scheme help lenders like us do that.
Sure, excellent. And also, I guess too, I mean, you guys have obviously all working from home. I'm sure that's not your office you're in at the moment.
No.
Is everybody going okay at Prospa?
Yeah, mate, it's interesting. It's amazing, firstly, how many people say we don't want to go back. They're actually loving working from home and the flexibility that it brings. There are obviously a lot of people missing the social interactions. So we've been doing some really cool stuff to keep people as engaged as possible. From we're still doing Friday Arvo drinks. So I think a lot of people are doing that. Obviously, it's via Zoom. We've got a lunchtime masterclass. One of our staff loves cooking, so he's doing like cooking classes at lunch and pets at work. So literally bring my pet in front of the Zoom camera, showcasing our pets. There's a lot of stuff like that. But then, of course, it is challenging to make sure we all keep engaged. We're all stuck in confined spaces, but this is not unusual to anybody all going through the same stuff. So communication is everything, and I think everyone's now used to doing video. Some people were always a bit uncomfortable doing video, whereas I think we've ripped that Band-Aid off. And in fact, I called someone on the mobile the other day, and it was like, what are you doing? Why aren't you FaceTiming me, or why aren't you? It's almost like we've done a complete backflip where it's inappropriate to do an audio call without video now.
I don't know if that's such a bad thing either, mind you. I've been encouraging everybody to don't just pick up the phone and ring, FaceTime and make it visual. I don't think that's a bad thing. Hey mate, while we've been speaking, a couple of questions have come through. I'm going to read this one as is because I'm not really across this, so maybe it'll ring more bells for you. The question asked is there going to be any products for brokers under Prospa, like you have done specials in the past before Christmas, specific for accredited brokers?
I think what we're referring to there is a partner loan. So so typically leading up to end of financial year or leading up to the end of calendar year, because we've always been proud of the fact that we've leveraged brokers as a big part of our solution, big part of our success, in fact. But we're acknowledging brokers are, by and large, many of them small business owners as well. So we've always looked after them should they require any sort of working capital. We are looking at that, in fact, concurrently with the other products we're doing through the scheme. And hopefully I'll be able to shed more light on that. But that is something that is on our radar right now to try and I'm talking with aggregators as well around that as well.
Yeah, cool. And it's a nice little segue because I'm getting quite a few questions around what's the government doing for brokers and what's happening with regulation, focusing back on the brokers. And I guess it's important to understand that these stimulus packages that have come out are for all small businesses that meet the criteria. Right. That includes brokers, they're small business people. So basically all this stuff that's happening at the moment is also for you guys out there, and ladies, sorry, that this is available for everyone, assuming you meet whatever the criteria are. And I was on a teleconference yesterday with a federal government minister. A week and a half ago, I was on another teleconference with an opposition minister talking about the various things. And it's actually interesting because government's doing what we're now doing. So they're doing Zoom meetings, they're doing, yesterday one was a telephone one. Actually did, you're right, it felt weird being on the phone, but lovely senior minister I was speaking to within the Treasury area. But talking about the things that are impacting brokers, because quite often we feel like we hear all these conversations, they seem to be about somebody else. But and it's why I sit on the advisory board of the Small Business Association, because we are all small business people. This all ties in together, and we shouldn't lose sight of that as well. So, so things about what's happening with government. Is government doing some stuff to look after brokers? Yes, they are, not necessarily specific, but in the general text of being a small business person. So those things apply to everyone else, which ticks a couple of questions I've got on the side here, because all my questions are answered. And the other one was...
Whitey, just to add to that one, so Treasury put out a set of requirements to all the lenders participating in the scheme. And some of that is actually, as you can appreciate, the speed at which we're operating is open to interpretation. So obviously you alluded to the fact that a number of lenders already participating in the scheme have openly suggested there's no remuneration program for brokers. When we put in our submission, we were very transparent with Treasury that that we want to remunerate our partners because they are small business owners, so they're not charities, they're not a not-for-profit, they're providing a service and they've got their own value proposition and also their own overheads and need revenue themselves. So it would almost be an oxymoron if we were cutting out the small business owner to get to a small business owner when both are quite rightly experiencing the same challenges, right? So I mean, a broker can apply to us the same way a cafe can apply to us right now. Where what we've done in the past is we've come up with something even more special for our partners, i.e. brokers, and that's what we're working through right now is what can we come up with that's special just for brokers, but they can apply and, you know, when we come out with this scheme, you'll see it very much has a remuneration program there for brokers, and we're not shying away from that fact because they need to be paid. They need revenue.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, it's very apt. Brokers aren't charities or not-for-profits. They're business people. They need to be remunerated. Otherwise, their world collapses as well. And when they're trying to help other people from their worlds collapsing, it just doesn't make sense. You know, it's all got to wash around somewhere. And the other question I got came through, but we did sort of touch on this before, is the comment was, has Prospa released their requirements for SME guarantee loan and pricing yet? No, the answer is next week, sometime, wait and see. So that will come through shortly. Right, well, that's excellent. I'm going to jump into a few other questions I've got here that have been submitted through that aren't directly Prospa related. They're general questions. I'll be interested to get some of your thoughts on this. And one I've got through from Jeff is says, hi Pete, I'm curious if you have any information about how living expenses will be looked at presently with many areas on the downside. Now, I know you're not in the consumer land, but what are your thoughts about it? To me, I think HEM is a continuing discussion, and a discussion that sort of needs to be parked a little bit now because everything's out of normal sync, and then sort of take this period of time of COVID-19 as to however long ago, take that, put it over there and come back to normal. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, mate, same. It's everyone's learning through this process. So everyone from government through to councils, local councils, businesses, lenders, brokers, we're all learning. And I think, I feel everyone's got the right intent. I feel, and that's my assumption. Every time I have a conversation with Whitey or anyone in the industry, I feel everyone's got the right intent. You can question the execution, but I think sometimes you're right. We need to park some of that because unless it's constructive and you can control it, you may as well park it and move on and work within what's your control. Logic has to come into it to have a set framework for everyone, and as it was before, you can't apply it right now because it's different. It's a different world. But I suppose my message is it's now, it's only now, and this will end. This isn't going to be forever. Everyone will, when this ends, everyone will start to rebuild and we'll come back bigger, stronger, better than ever. Every time we've had any sort of catastrophe or pandemic in any of the recorded history, we've always bounced back. So that part we know. So in the interim, I think every lender's got a different appetite, different view, working closely with your aggregator BDMs. They've got a very strong finger on the pulse with what each lender's doing and find out what is the best solution for your customer in the interim so that they can survive.
Yeah. I think you touched on a little piece there that I think is always something that brokers, and we tend to forget a little bit, is that every lender has a different risk appetite. So I imagine that still plays out through this, even though we're trying to help market segments, but there is still a risk appetite that says, this is where I operate, this is my space. So this is Prospa space, this is major bank space, this is whoever space. So I think we've got to remember that a little bit too, that we don't lose sight of that somewhere. So I've been getting a few more. I've got another one here for you in a sec. Everybody wants to talk to you about questions about what you're doing, brother. That's all right, we'll come back to that. I've been getting a lot of questions around clawbacks. And I've got one, and we spoke a lot about clawbacks last week. So I suggest if you're interested in those conversations, that you look at the FBAA YouTube site and have a look back at that. The question I got here, is it too late to change the law around clawbacks? Well, once law is set and has been ascended, your chances of changing it are mighty goddamn hard. So I'm going to say, no, you can't change the law once it's there. The reality is, yes, you potentially can, but it's an enormous exercise. But I did speak a fair bit about clawbacks and what the FBAA is doing about that going forward. Have a look at last week's video. And of course, if you've got any questions, and Alex, you said, yeah, government's put out a fair bit of information about this. The FBAA has set up their broker support program. And on that dedicated page, we have all the links from government, regardless what it is, whether it's the JobKeeper program, the SME guarantee lending, all that stuff is all centralised on our FBAA website under the business broker support program. And you'll see the tiles there for it and so on. So have a look at that, and that will help you through. The other interesting comment you touched on, Alex, and sorry, something's jumped in on my computer screen here, is that, yeah, we talk about different risk appetites, and we've seen what's happened in GFCs, and I have a question here from Greg around this, or as much as a comment, that in GFCs, or if I go before the GFC and look at recessions of the past, some lenders walked away from brokers altogether and said, well, we're not going to deal with brokers anymore. And we've seen some of the banks do things like that a little bit, where you're talking about supporting the brokers. It always concerns me when they do that, because I can go back and I can name names when I do this. This is back in the 80s, and it would be around the mid 80s, where finance companies like AGC, which was a car finance, it doesn't exist anymore, and they'd go hot and cold into the car industry, but predominantly that was their market. And so they'd go away and say, bugger you lot, I'm not doing it anymore. Then they come back and sort of, oh, please. So it kind of, it wears thin after a while. And I understand some of the angst from some of us that have been in the game from a while around that. And I'm so glad to see what you guys are doing, because I think it's so appropriate that we look at these the right way. A couple of other questions. The question here, is it true that SME guarantee scheme loans cannot be used to pay out existing debt? Do you know anything about that as yet, or is that something still as a work in progress?
No. So the government's actually put out, that's publicly available information around the criteria you can and can't use. So absolutely, you can't pay out existing debt. And in terms of even the $250,000 scheme that the government's put out, that's an entirety. So you can't go to one lender and get $250,000 and then go to another lender and get another $250,000. You actually can only get $250,000 under the scheme as a whole. So you can get 100,000 here and 150,000 there. That's okay, but it's not. Yeah, there are set criteria that I would encourage. Like not just the scheme, but become very familiar with. So yeah, you can't pay out other lenders. That's definitely one of the rules.
Okay, well, there you go. I didn't know that one. Mind you, I'm not lending these days, so it's hard to keep across everything, but that's interesting to know. So, I mean, this really is a focus then for this sort of funding to help businesses manage their cash flow, yeah?
Yes. Ultimately, that's what it's for. I mean, it can. There are pockets that are using for working capital. So anyone attached to either essential services or supporting essential services, they're actually going gangbusters at the moment. If they're looking for a pocket where they can grow, where it's proactive as opposed to reactive. Those businesses need working capital. Like we're seeing truck sales go through the roof. I don't know about your neck of the woods, Whitey, but in Sydney, you can't get enough truck drivers. So anyone who's got a truck license, they just can't get it. So whilst car sales have gone down, truck sales are going through the roof, and they need people to drive them. So there are industries and pockets of subsets of industries that are going gangbusters right now. And then the others, it is very much about the government's initiative around this, and the 6-month deferred up to 3 years is about making sure that a business can survive today so that it can thrive tomorrow. And that's what it's about. It's about giving them survival funds to keep going in future.
Well, there's a really good tip in there for all the brokers out there. Have a look at your plant and equipment financing options. Speak to all your business borrowers or business clients you have on your books. If they're in that sort of sector, there may be some great financing opportunities to help them out because of the increased demand on truck and delivery drivers. And we're seeing it in Brisbane as well. That demand on getting home delivery up and running, more trucks being put on the road. And I think too, and this is, I guess, a pushback to lenders, but when we look at these things I think will reset a lot more norms as we come out the other end. Just because we've got a spike in home deliveries, that may become a lot more normal than what it used to be.
Yeah.
So
and
it doesn't.
You're right, mate. I think some of these things, like FaceTime and Zoom, I was saying earlier, I think that's going to be the norm moving forward, and all of us are going to be a lot more comfortable in doing video. But in terms of the now, like we did a loan just the other day for a customer who wanted to buy their stock in bulk because they're still trading through their other sources, not in their shop at the moment, but they're still trading. But the concern is about product availability. So given the turnaround time and the delay in manufacturing and the delay in transport, they wanted to get a bulk shipment done so that their business does not suffer due to a lack of supply. And these are the conversations that I think brokers should be having with their small business customers, looking at how their business model is operating, what changes are they trying to juggle with or deal with in terms of not just supply, but customer behaviour, staffing. The JobKeeper program is awesome, but we've had businesses come to us wanting help to bridge the gap between JobKeeper and what the normal wage is, because we're still struggling with just that small gap there. So about understanding, well, what other options do they have? And like you said, the FBAA's got information available on your website. But I love the fact that even though you're supporting them with all the content, Pete, through the broker support program, the BSP, I saw you announce the other day that you're introducing monthly membership fees and as opposed to annual, to help even your members who are small business owners, reduce their overheads and manage their cash flow. So it's every little bit helps. So yeah, well done to you guys for a great initiative.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, we're trying to do our bit to help. I mean, I guess a lot of people want a lot more, but we've got to remember, we are a not-for-profit. Any retained earnings are invested back into the memberships. So it's not like we're a profit-based company and can jump through some magic hoops. We can't, but we're trying to do our best, and part of that program that we've got is to help people to be able to support them in their business. Because I know people here and questions coming through about how their businesses have been impacted from back in the Royal Commission, and that was a real shit of a time to go through. Let me tell you, I don't know how many extra decades I aged. I normally got brown hair and look like a young 20-year-old, but look at me now, I just shattered. But brokers are having their challenges as well. We go through the Royal Commission, come out now, and business volumes drop a bit, and we've got to remember that there is a line in the sand for this stimulus. What is it, 30% drop in revenue over whatever period of time it was? Not everybody quite touches that, even though incomes have come down a bit. So, I know some people are having difficulty managing their own businesses. So I guess you've got to look at all the options that you've got within your business as a broker, and whether it's talking to Prospa, whether that's appropriate, whether it's talking to against funding against your trail book through people like trail book loans, whether it's talking to your aggregators, whatever it is, there's a heap of support out there. You need to go out and having to look at it, to look at the options. Another question has just come through about petrol stations. We spoke about the retail beforehand. I imagine then that, at the moment, you guys would still be lending to assist petrol stations who have, with cash flow needs. So I don't know, because you're not taking security over the petrol station. And I knew when I was lending, that was always an interesting style of asset to secure against. But otherwise, is it basically the same pull with anyone? I mean, if it meets the criteria, then it's open for consideration. Is that?
We actually haven't changed our policy on who our credit criteria. However, in saying that, are we looking at it with a different lens? Yeah, we absolutely are. And if we weren't, we would not be practicing responsible lending. So the environment and landscape has changed. And that's why my answer to all the industries we were supporting 6 months ago, that hasn't changed. We've not formally changed any of that, because we're just looking at the merits and the situation of every single business. So there may be a service station that we would contemplate, whereas the next one we wouldn't, and it would be based on different circumstances.
Another question is kind of just backing off a conversation we were having a moment ago about you can't refinance your funds. Users may refinance. Question is, will they allow an existing Prospa client to refinance their current loan to the new government guarantee structure? I would assume not, but because this is a separate standalone thing, isn't it? It actually was a question I asked the federal minister yesterday. He's got to go back and research because he didn't know the answer. But would that be right? You can't do that.
So it's a fantastic question, and everything's coming down to interpretation, one, and two, business appetite, I suppose, or even capability. So what we're looking to do, and more information will come out. I'm going to stress that it's not available yet. Brokers will absolutely find out once it's available for brokers to distribute. So we are planning to do a very quick pilot, because we're planning to launch 2 new products, and they will fall under the scheme. And basically, any loan they've got with us at the moment stands as it is today. We've had customers call us. In fact, we proactively called customers who have a loan with us. We've given them options if they're having challenges to do partial payments or defer their payments. And we've got no backlog. We're on top of all of it. There's no customers waiting to hear from Prospa on a decision whether, if they want to, like, we're dealing with it as quickly as humanly possible. And in a lot of those cases, they get off the phone when they've asked us. They get off the phone, that's done. It's that quick. But they will be separate facilities because the government's got their own criteria. So, for example, Prospa's loan only goes up to 2 years, 24 months, whereas under the schemes facility, it's going to go up to 3 years with the first 6 months deferred. So we're going to keep them separate, but that's what we're planning to do. I can't speak on behalf of all other lenders. I haven't been.
No. We realise it relevant to your conversation. Sorry about that. It's live. I just almost sent everything flying. A comment, I guess we know the answer to this, but a comment's come through that there's likely to be a number of industries that boom out the back of this. You look at, even in some of the automotive sectors in the manufacturing side, even though they're going through a hard slog, but they've now turned their hands to manufacturing medical masks and the gowns and so on, because they're constantly making covers for car seats and for dashboards, all that sort of stuff. In my head, I would imagine if those things, and of course brewers who are doing the hand sanitizers, of course. But to me, my thoughts would be, if those things are making business and financial viability sense, I would see those things would continue. And potentially some of what were more traditionally based businesses who are seen in a specific light may now have a much broader product range and diversification that is not too astute from what they actually do. It's not like they're farmers and now they're building bridges. You know what I mean? Yeah, like it's all relevant because of what their skill set is. I imagine from a lending perspective, that will create some interesting opportunities that one would prosper from, pardon the pun. But you know what I mean? I think there's some interesting, again, new norms that come out of this really weird situation we're in that would actually help certain sectors to boom. And if that happens, then that would self-stimulate other microeconomic, other microeconomies that then revolve around that, I would imagine.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, if you spend enough time looking at the businesses that are really busy right now, that will give you insight. But what I think, like when we were talking about our comfort levels and the new norm in as little as 5 or 6 weeks around FaceTiming, e-commerce, it'll be interesting to see how much of the online trading continues that way, like actually doesn't stall, but in fact goes gangbusters when right now we're seeing my mother-in-law, both my mother-in-law, father-in-law, elderly pensioners, we've been doing their groceries for them, just so they don't have to worry about it. But my mother-in-law set herself a mission to order online from Woolies because she felt lucky that we were doing the groceries for her, and they're still very much independent couple. It took her 3 hours to do a small grocery shop online because just first time. But I think that if she's capable of doing an online order through Woolies, will she ever do that ever again? And that's using sort of the extreme scenario where I think consumer behaviour will absolutely change, and some of it won't turn off. In fact, it'll explode because the reality is a lot of people, consumer spending has gone down, and rightly so because of the uncertain environment and certainly job losses, which are really unfortunate. But imagine when, in the good times, when consumer spending goes back up, what does that mean for transport industries, delivery? Yeah, I think it's important to look. The best way to look at it is, what are you doing as a consumer? How are you behaving? What are you looking at? I know, talking to the real estate industry, VR is going through the roof right now, virtual reality. So because you can't do walkthroughs on properties at the moment, and so how do you manage that? Pete, if you recall, when we were in Hong Kong together, the majority of their open houses are done through VR, almost all of them. So yeah, there's going to be a change for the real estate industry. There's going to be a lot of different things happening.
And just for clarification, when we were in Hong Kong, that was business. I don't want anybody to think there was anything else happening there. It was a business trip.
Yeah, sure.
Really? Yeah.
It was a business trip, but we're looking at the financial services over there. But looking at what real estate did over there, that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. And I see that because last week I had a teleconference for the IMBF, for the International Federation I chair, and we're talking about how my wife just sent me a message based off that comment we just made. She was talking about Munich instead. That's another story. But we were talking about what's happening, say, in the UK. It was actually a specific conversation there, and what they're doing to adjust to be able to work with valuations and how that looks. So with the VR style of approach, and they're going through some change in legislation as well to help make sure that they accommodate that. And so it's interesting. A lot of these countries instantly look at us as the example in Australia as to what should they do, and it doesn't stop.
was a federation. I mean, what an awesome initiative, because who would have thought right now what sort of role that would play, right? Who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly. It was always designed for the conversation, but the relevance at the moment is quite significant in what's happening around the world, how they're dealing with these situations, the different speeds they're running at. And it's like in America, because such a big country, COVID was mainly a West Coast, East Coast thing. It's not so much anymore, but some brokers were just absolutely nailing their businesses, and now all of a sudden they're pulling right back. And it's the same in Ireland. Some brokers were doing really well. I had a guy message me from Ireland who actually spoke when we were there, and he's just chatting about the marketplace and something that we're doing through the Federation in 2021, which everyone keep posted on that exciting event happening in 2021 where the handcuffs are off for the Federation, the IMBF. And how well his business was running. In that, with their different speeds, but coming back to here, the conversation that I was having with the Federal Minister yesterday, he did express concerns in the property market and the impact that would have on mortgage brokers. They are very concerned that the protection of mortgage brokers needs to maintain. I mean, it was a part of a big part of where they saw things post Royal Commission, even though, for granted, the first step wasn't what we'd like, but they came around from that. And so they do have brokers in mind as well, and to ensure that our markets keep going. Mate, I'm going to quickly step forward because unfortunately my time is starting to come to an end, and I do want to try and get through a couple of other questions I've got here. I'd be interested in this. This is not really a business lending. It's probably more of a residential or consumer lending style question, but because, and again, your input from my point of view is just invaluable. So I know you're across the list. Is that with formal approvals, is it prudent to put some sort of clause or wording into emails that they're being sent to clients just to understand and say, well, yes, it's formally approved, but if your circumstances change, you're going to have to let me or the lender know, because we all realise that lenders have the legal right to withdraw any time up to settlement if circumstances change. And last week was, somebody cautiously asked me, should we tell the lender? My response is you have to tell the truth. And the truth is, if circumstances change, you're going to have to fess up with that. And it could be quite devastating. And again, that conversation I had yesterday was around a piece about, I would hope, and this isn't your spot, but like the major lenders in the home loan sector, together with the real estate agents and the Real Estate Institute, will look at a balanced approach. If somebody's circumstances have changed, the lender pulls out, is it right that they should do their deposit and costs and so on, and fees are being charged? I think it's a real difficult one. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, listen, I think hopefully common sense always prevails, and sometimes if I was looking to buy a house and I had my heart set on that house, and even though my circumstances have changed, I could easily convince myself that I still want it and it'll be okay. But because I'm already mentally fixated on that outcome. But sometimes it takes someone else to tell me, well, Alex, actually that's not the best decision you could be doing right now because your circumstances have changed. So it's that sounding voice of reason to help me guide through that. It would be so disappointing. I think things like a change of circumstances need to be reflected in your typical things like deposits and stuff like that, especially now, because it's not reasonable, it's not normal right now. Before they weren't very common. Right now they're more common than they ever were. So I think ultimately, as long as people do the right thing, and whatever that is, and always, and that is always transparency and honesty, as you said, Pete. And then work through the next steps.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, I have a large amount of questions I haven't gotten to today, but I so thoroughly enjoy talking with you, my friend. We regularly sit down and have a chat, and time disappears on us. And once again, that's pretty much happened today as well. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of our conversation today. Your friendship to myself, your knowledge of this industry, and your your openness and honesty as to your viewpoints of the world, as far as I'm concerned, are invaluable, and I always seek your counsel on things. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. You're a wonderful man, and please, everybody, thank Alex. See, you can hear everybody clapping, brother.
Very good. I'll start the Mexican wave.
Yeah, right. Very good. I can see it going around the country.
Thanks,
All
buddy.
right. Take care. We'll speak to you soon. See you later.
See you, mate. Cheers. Bye.
Be well. Be well. All right. Well, it's great to have Alex with us today. And next week, we've got some really fascinating guests. We have AFCA joining us. So make sure you register next week as Evelyn, who is the lead ombudsman for banking and finance, and Diana, who is executive general manager for resolutions, will join me on Q&A with Whitey next week. And we're going to talk about AFCA. And there are many questions and challenges and issues we've been having. I've been fortunate to be having conversations with AFCA from their managing director, from their chairman, I should say, just get that right, their chairman, CEO, and down to these ladies who we met just before we shut down earlier this year. And we're going to have a talk more about what's happening within the world of AFCA. And stay tuned, because we're also planning a webinar with AFCA to deep dive into a lot more things in the coming couple of months. So stay tuned for that. Anyhow, I hope you'll join us next week. Thank you again to our sponsors and business partners who back us, who back you, who back our industry. They're all wonderful people. Join us next week with AFCA, and don't forget, make sure you look to fill out our survey, and once you've got the survey as well, it'll give you the code for our CPDs for these sessions. Have a great week. I'll see you again, same time, same day, next week when we talk to AFCA. See you then. Thanks so much. Bye.